Great. This is LBC News 24 minutes after 8. Let's talk more about what's going to be happening over Christmas. As I was just saying, we know that the four chief medical officers of the UK warning the NHS faces a tough 3 months ahead. Despite the coronavirus vaccine getting a go-ahead, they say people meeting up over Christmas is likely to put extra pressure on the NHS this winter. Students, of course, are starting to travel home, some of them anyway, to form a Christmas bubble over the Christmas period. But some are actually not travelling home because they don't want to expose elderly relatives to their uni-going children, or they want to make sure that those in the family, generally older relatives, for example, can form part of a three-household bubble. So not all students going to be travelling home. So they're going to have a very different Christmas this year. Let's talk more about this now here on LBC News with Brian Welsh, the CEO at Nido Student. Very good morning to you, Brian.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us here on LBC News. So it is going to be a different Christmas for, well, pretty much everyone, but particularly students.
Well, hasn't it been a tough earlier for students, Chris? These are the cohorts who went through the whole A-level marking confusion, let's call it, and now they're faced with the prospect of many of them not being able to return home to spend Christmas with their families. So they've had a very tough time. Here at Nido Student, we're expecting between 50 and 70% more students staying with us in residence over Christmas than we would have expected in Christmas in previous Christmases. And of course, it's a mixed picture, isn't it? Because half of the students living in purpose-built student accommodation typically are international students coming from outside of the UK. And at this time of year, the ones that didn't travel home of the international cohort would go travelling, which is not available to them. So obviously, a lot of those guys are trapped in their home, which is a Nido student in the UK or across Europe. And the domestic students who want to go home, exactly as you say, parents are having to take really tough decisions around how to prioritise. Often elderly grandparents, and would you want to, I guess, prioritise having them over for Christmas Day over your 18, 19, 20-year-old travelling back from university, and how do you mix those two things? It's a very difficult position.
Absolutely, and it's an interesting, though, even though people are allowed to form these Christmas bubbles, a lot of people actually aren't. What are students saying to you?
Well, a lot more students, as I say, are saying to us they're going to stay in residence over the Christmas, and they're not delighted about the prospect, as you can imagine, but they recognise, they're intelligent people, and they recognise that it's in many cases the right thing for their families to do. And we're doing everything we possibly can to support them over Christmas. Of course, we recognise some students will be feeling lonely and homesick. It's their first Christmas away from home, and they hadn't really planned for this. So to keep their spirits up, Nido's developed a range of events and activities. We do a lot of events and activities during a typical year anyway. Clearly this year, a lot of that's moved online, and anything we do has to abide by social distancing and bubbles and hand cleaning and and masks and everything else. But we're doing all sorts of stuff for the students, like everything from teaching them Christmas dinner cookery classes to tree decorating classes. So being super well attended, particularly on the online ones, so we can have a greater reach to our Instagram posts, Instagram feeds. So that's been great. But of course, again, as I said, there's some internationals there who don't celebrate Christmas. So for them, we're continuing our standard events program of yoga, workout classes, meditation, everything else.
I guess it's just, as everyone is going to, making the best of it, isn't it? And that's what students are going to do this year.
Absolutely right. Students are very, very resilient. So whilst we talk a lot in the student accommodation industry about mental health, and we've done loads of great initiatives to support students' mental health and well-being. They are resilient, and in the main, they will get over this and they'll be fine. And interestingly, some parents have been calling us as well to say, "Hey, what are you guys doing over Christmas?" Because we are obviously worried about our children. We know that you deliver great events normally, but what are you doing to keep them engaged over the festive period? So we've been able to give them some reassurance about that.
And those that are leaving, are they taking part in those coronavirus tests that they need before going to their families?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on at the moment. So that's typically led by the universities and the local authorities who are being diligent, and they want to. Everybody wants to reduce the instances of the virus in the community. Everybody wants to protect elderly relatives. So it's a great example of all of the communities coming together to try and make this the least worst Christmas it can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And just on those students who have or will return home for Christmas, we know that there was guidance this week that was issued that they would have to have a staggered return to universities in the new year. Will you be supporting students with that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. This is very much university by university. So I think we're all in danger of using shorthand to treat universities as one homogenous group and say universities will do this. Well, actually, these universities are each independent and enormous organisations who will take their own risk-based approach to returning students to university. And throughout the pandemic, we've seen, whilst a lot of face-to-face lectures haven't been taking place, we've seen tutorials, labs, practicals, we've seen clinical practice, we've seen a lot of students going out of the buildings and going to do things that you simply can't replicate over a screen. So university has been pretty practical and pragmatic about this in the main.
Well, fascinating talking to you, and I definitely want to check out that How to Decorate a Christmas Tree class. Thanks very much for talking to us here on LBC News. That is Brian Welsh, the CEO of Nido Student. This